All right, we are in the last part of this four-part series that has to do with the Zman of Mashiach. As in the first part, we spoke about the idea of Tzipita Yeshua is waiting for Mashiach, understanding what's behind it in a very in-depth way. That's the first one. We spoke about, of course, Mashiach ben Yosef, which is fundamental. The last year, number 3, we spoke about the third Beit HaMikdash, how it's going to fall down and what we can learn from and take it for ourselves. And we can't finish. We decided to add one more shir because we can't finish without speaking about one of the most fundamental yesodot, and that's known as Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach. Here we are in Ikvet of Mashiach. We're at the time at the end, as we are familiar with. And this time we know it's really the end, especially it works out mathematically, but besides that, with all the signs that are around us, the birth pangs of Mashiach, I want to see A, how we can relate to it, and B, you should know it connects a lot to Pesach. Here we are before Pesach. It's a very Pesach shir also, because of course we know that Chazal tell us, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, that be Nisan Nigalu. On Nisan, we were, in the past, we were Nigal, we were redeemed, and so too in the future we will be redeemed during the time of Pesach. So it's a very apropos subject to speak about during this month, during this time of Pesach, time in between Adar and things. So I just want to get a good idea of Chevlei Mashiach. Of course, many Shurim will speak about the difficulties in this. That's not my direction. I want to try to see how we can relate and what we're supposed to do. Here we are standing at the birth pangs of Mashiach. How do we understand it? Now, first of all, I'll just give a quick introduction to the idea of Chevlei Mashiach. It's based on a Gemara in Sanhedrin, on Daf Tzadi Zayin, that says, Yetev lo yechmeno. Very unusual Gemara that actually says that the Amoraim actually said that we wanted to come, Yetev, please bring Mashiach, but I don't want to watch it. I don't want to be there. Very strange statement. The reason they don't want to see it is because they were afraid about how painful it was going to be. They said if we're around during this time period, it's going to be a little bit scary, a little bit dangerous. And they said, we want to watch out for these Yisurim, from these types of birth pangs that we're going to go through. So apparently it's an inevitable fact, an inevitable metziut, that it will exist. Which, like, again, we want to explain how, put it together in our time in Mokum and time. Okay, that's that's that. That's A. B, as we all know, the Vilna Gaon, and others, but especially the Vilna Gaon and the Chofetz Chaim, they would compare, based on Chazal, it's based on the Zohar, they would compare many times the birth pangs of Mashiach, or Ikvet Mashiach, to the Chevlei Haleida, to the tzirim that happens by a woman when she's giving birth. As we're very familiar with, Baruch Hashem, that when a woman gives birth, it's not the most comfortable of positions. All right, we're kind of familiar. She knows better than we do, but we can pretend that we know what we're talking about, and we say, yeah, we feel bad for you. Yeah, we understand, right? It didn't bother me. Yeah. Even when she was cursing you out, it didn't bother you. It didn't bother you. Anyways, so at the time when a woman is giving birth, as we know, there is what we call the birth pangs that happens, and it's very interesting because it happens in slow but methodical system that happens. It happens a little bit and gets harder and worse and worse and worse and worse. And similar to that, as we can well understand, this is the Vilna Gaon writes in Even Shleima, it's written in Perek Yud Aleph, that it says also, Ki chala gam yalada Tzion, also Tzion will give birth, meaning there will also be birth pangs, and it's inevitable, it's a beautiful thing, we love to have a child, it's bringing new life to the world, it's the reason why we're here, it's creation, it's causing new phenomenons, but it doesn't come for free, it comes at an expense of sometimes having to go through a little bit of a tsar, of a little bit of a pain. The Chofetz Chaim adds another factor that we find sometimes we go through very difficult scenarios, like what happened, let's say, during the Holocaust, and then afterwards you get like a kind of quiet still for a little while. You have a little bit of peace or quiet for a number of years until it comes back again. I don't have to tell you about October 7th, but even before that we've had a number of pretty heavy things during the times here, 1972, Yom Kippur, 73, sorry. And other scenarios that happens. But if you peer the history of our Galut, it's always like that. We have some really heavy hits, Tach V'Tat, Spanish Inquisitions, and then you have like still, and then you have like quiet for a certain period of time until it happens. This is exactly what happens by a woman who's giving birth also. She has those heavy tzirim, heavy contractions, and then boom, it's quiet. Everything's relaxed. She can walk around, it seems like everything's good to go, and then boom, it happens again. It happens again. That's exactly the similarity to what we're referring to when we talk about the idea of the Galut. Okay? And the birth pangs of Mashiach. Yancha hayam Hashem b'yom tzara. a pasuk that's in Tehillim. It says, Yancha Hashem b'yom tzara, during the time of tzara. It is 9 words in that pasuk. 9 words, Keneged, Tisha, Yerchei Leida, we're going to be reading about in the Haggadah, the 9 months that a woman gives birth. And of course, when eventually she gives birth, even after the contractions, the time of Leida itself is hard, it's heavy, it's not easy. Not easy, I don't even want to say that, right? It's serious pain. And it's a time at the actual, but it's quick and fast, and it goes, and then it's a feeling of exhilaration. It's a feeling of just absolute, relaxation, of comfort, of just fantastic. I've done it. I'm over. It's gone. Right? That type of, I'm speaking to a bunch of men here, so you guys don't know what I'm talking about. Neither do I. I'm saying I really understand. I'm sure you've heard it from your wives at least. Right? Yeah. Right. Okay. So I appreciate. Hopefully, some women are watching the camera. But anyways, that type of feeling of like, oh, post, we did it, it wasn't easy. But it happens nice and quick. The actual delivery, I'm saying, the actual when the baby's coming out, it happens fast, but it's extremely painful. And that is the same mamash idea of the time of Mashiach, what's going to happen during that time period, about how not easy it's going to be. And like we said, it's already Pesach time, so it always easily connects to Mitzrayim. Everything, Chazal already tell us that the way the Geula happened by Mitzrayim overlaps very much with the Geula that's going to happen L'Atid Lavo. And one of them is, of course, we know the work got doubled before we got out. When Moshe Rabbeinu came, he said, Nirpim em Nirpim. He doubled up the slavery. He made us work. We gave up. We were in Yush. We couldn't even handle it anymore. We were just, we couldn't handle it. It was just too much for us. And the darkness was so heavy that was the point when the light was starting to beacon. Ayelet HaShachar is the darkest part of the night. It's the darkest part of the night, but it's really the beginning of Alot HaShachar. That's right before Alot HaShachar comes to the fruition. And as we know, we've spoken about this idea in many places, and I don't want to go so much into it, but we know when a seed decomposes, when a larvae from a pupa is going ahead and decomposing, we know that's the beginning of beauty that's coming to become exposed. It's the birth of a tree, it's the birth of a butterfly. That's where the beginning starts. So even when it looks like the worst is happening, when a woman's giving birth, if you didn't know what was going on, you'd say it's all over. Rahman al-Atsan, this is a bad scenario. I don't know what's going to be next. It looks like she's not going to make it, and then suddenly, boom, we have 2 lives here that are around. Do you understand? That's the beauty of the idea of Ikvita the Mashiach. A lot of sirens. I don't know what's going here, but I'll mention one mashal to this idea. Just to get an expression. Like I said, this is not going to be overly my focus, this Nakuda. I feel other people have spoken about it, the idea of Chevle Mashiach to that extent, but my son went to, when he was a couple years ago, he told me when he went from Yam Liyam. It's a heavy hike that a lot of boys like to do. They go from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea, they want to be Mekayim the Pasuk, right? If everyone's advertising them from the river to the sea, they want to make sure they do it. So they travel from, it's easier to go apparently from the Yam HaMelech to go to the Kinneret. They go from the Yam HaMelech and they go to the Yam Kinneret. For good, grubby guys who can move fast, they can make it within 3 days be'erech. If not, it could take up to a week for one of us. Okay? That's basically a thing. Anyways, so my son, more than a week. 12 hours in a car. I forgot to mention it was by foot, right? I forgot to mention by foot, right? Anyways, so he said they were going, they did about 2.5 days, and they were on their 3rd day, and they really wanted to get to the Kinneret before nightfall, and they didn't have so much, they were a little bit short on supplies, and they wanted to already get to the Kinneret, see other people and be there, and that's whatever, and just already get there, and they were short a little bit on water also, but Seder, he's a real trooper, he didn't have such a problem with it. He said they were going here, trying here, and they were pushing and pushing, they kept going, and they said, it's over, it's not going to happen. They saw a bridge, like there was a bridge going over their heads. They said, we'll just go underneath the bridge and we'll just, we'll call it a night or whatever and wait till the next day. So they went underneath the bridge and they saw there were some bushes, like a dense amount of bushes beyond the bridge. So they, went through the bushes a little bit to see what was beyond there. And right when they finished going through the bushes, they found their legs in the water of the Kinneret. Like they didn't even realize they were close there. They not only saw the Kinneret, they were in the Kinneret. The bushes were growing in the Kinneret. Like they didn't realize they were on the Kinneret, just in a very bushy area. And suddenly They're in the Kinneret. He's like, wow. And he said his friend said to him at the time, he said, oh, this is what Mashiach is going to be like, exactly. He said, you're going to be going and thinking and trying, we want to get there, it's almost there, everyone's going to keep saying, we're almost there, we're almost there. And until you're going to get to the stage and go, it's ready, forget it, let's just, almost throwing in the towel, and suddenly, you're in the Kinneret, you're in the Mashiach. Mashiach is here, he was here, whoa, I didn't realize. You're the, man. It was here all the time, you wouldn't even realize that's the scenario. That's a little bit of the idea of Chavlei Mashiach Kaviyachol. We've been going through the tzaras and always saying this, that, and then suddenly, boom, we found ourselves, that's where we're supposed to be. And that's where we're supposed to be, and that's where we are. But that's really the idea of the ikvata, the Mashiach, which comes with Chavlei Mashiach. Very interesting phenomenon I saw. Before we move to part 2, this was just the introduction what I said to them. An interesting phenomenon. First of all, in Hebrew, the word mashber is a depression. We use the word mashber when a person's going through a crisis. A crisis or a depression, right? They're both when he's in a heavy depression, like almost a clinical depression. It's called a mashber when you're going through marish chara. You understand? That's what a mashber is. It's interesting because, as we all know, mashber is the same word that's used for a woman who's yoshevet al mashber. She's sitting on the birth stool. That's the expression in English, right? On the birth stool. She's sitting on I think that's the expression. What's the mashber? The birth, right? When a woman's giving birth, it's called that she's yoshevet al hamashber. She's on the mashber. It's incredible. The overlap. Why the overlap? Because not because women are depressed. I mean, there's such a thing as postpartum, but it's more the idea of that overlaps. When you go through all this tzaras and this, it's not easy. Yes, you're sitting on the mashber, you're going through a crisis, you're going through a difficult time, but it's leading to, Bezrat Hashem, the future that you're going to see. Bezrat Hashem, you're going to hold a baby. And listen to a bigger thing, no one knows this in this room. Watch this one. I would have brought the symbol, but I can't even copy these symbols. The Chinese symbols are just, I'm just dumbified by these people can write all these symbols. But the same Chinese symbol, which has a squiggly here and a squiggly there and a couple dashes and things and a couple dots, just in case you were wondering. The same Chinese symbol that is for a mashber, for something, depression or being down, is the same exact Chinese symbol for what we call a hizdamnut, an opportunity. Opportunity is the same word, the same symbol, one symbol as it is for a mashber. Very interesting in the Chinese language, because they understand the sod. Some people say the Chinese are one of the 10 shvatim. They have their sages and they go and they follow the other things.
It's a big shit.
It's all 10 together. It's all 10 together, yeah. But anyways, they have, the idea behind it is that opportunity knocks dafka in the place where the mashber exists, dafka in the place where it seems everything's bleak. And that's really, in a nutshell, the idea of what we call Chavlei Mashiach. Of course, we could expand on this with a tremendous amount of information. That's not so much where I want to go. I want to more speak about a nekuda, which I feel we should all be able to relate to when we're speaking about nowadays that we're in ikvata de Mashiach. And that is a little bit to say, what's the point? What's the reason why Hashem had to work it out with this mahalach that Mashiach has to come dafka with Chavlei Mashiach? Was it an absolute necessity that it had to be done with such a process? Couldn't we have just skipped to the point, like you'll just want to skip to the end, get to the finish line? Why do I have to go through the whole task of going in and going through the rat race and going through the difficulties in order to get there? What is it? What is the meaning behind such a thing?
We had our chance to we ate the creates that. So
we ate from the Eitzah. Oh, yeah. Okay. He's saying we already messed it up by Adam Marishan, he said. Or there's an idea of be'ita if you do tshuva beforehand, but you're right. Okay, I apologize on the camera, I'm not feeling so well, so that's why the past couple shiurim have not been perfectly intact. So I want to read to you a couple pieces that I think will make us relate to the scenario that we're in, and also relate to what Chavlei Mashiach is about. And like I said, this is our last year discussing the subject, so I felt to want to give a good understanding behind it. Seder? Maybe eventually we'll also get to the Galut, specifically of Galut Yishmael, because it all connects to what we're speaking about. I'm going to read to you from the Sefer. I'm going to start with the Sefer Or Letzion, Rav Abba Shaul. Rav Abba Shaul, Ben Zion Abba Shaul, the great Rosh Hashiva, who came out with a Sefer on Chochmah Musar. They came out from his speeches on Chochmah Musar, but they came out with a Chelik Bet, which unfortunately people don't know about. They really should be doing it before Mincha, in my opinion, over here. But anyways, in the Or Letzion, in Chelik Musar and Perik Kuf Tzadi Ches, he says a very incredible thing. I want to read it to you. He says something that bothered him. This is a great Rosh Hashiva. Yeah, he says something that bothered him. Shanim Rabot Dati Al Kach. He said, my head has been in something back and forth for many, many years, bothered me. And he, Kilu, speaks this out, his thoughts of something he was trying to figure out for quite a while. And he says like this, basically, there are two katim, two groups of people here in Eretz Yisrael. Very clearly we know there's two very, I'll say extreme groups. There of course are people, every extreme has something in the middle a little bit, not always by Jews, but anyways, we have almost two extreme groups which we could speak out more or less. There's some that say we are witness right now to what we call Atchalata de Geulta. We are the beginning of the Geula. We are seeing the heralding of Mashiach. Baruch Hashem, we have conquered our land, the great Eretz Yisrael, which used to be a barren land, which is all 100% true. Eretz Asher loy b'miskana tochal ba'lechem loy techsar kol ba. We know that it became a land which was barren for 2,000 years, and here it is. Suddenly, it became ours. We're living on the land that we've cherished so long to be able to be part of. As we've spoken about in previous Sharm, when we spoke about Eretz Yisrael, speaking about Eretz Yisrael once upon a time was like, I'm now speaking about Mashiach. When we speak about Mashiach, and we're like, wow, can't wait, I'll buy, that's what they spoke about Eretz Yisrael, no question. It was like the dream, it was like the future, it was like everything that you were looking for and waiting for. It was something people would just take the dirt of someone who walked in Eretz Yisrael and they put inside their soup. That's what the Chidah puts, right in one place. They'd go to just be able to taste a little bit of it. It was something that was Eretz HaKodesh. To be able to live here was something very special. And here we are, able to live here comfortably. Am I allowed to say that? Right? You're able to say here and able to live here somewhat and able to be here protected. We have tremendous amount of people learning here, as Rav Abba Shalom himself made. We have people here learning. The amount of people that we have right now learning in Koilel is not since the first Beit HaMikdash. We didn't have so many people learning in Koilim, and this, how many people being Shakir and Torah. We had everybody, 99% of Jews were religious and connected and everything like that, but to have people learning full time to this amount of people was, it's off the books. Something that's unrecognized to Jewish history, Kimat. And like I said, for the past 2,500 years. And something extra phenomenal. We went through a terrible, terrible Holocaust, including the Sephardim, by the way. The Sephardim also suffered a lot by it. And there were many events that we went by, and from there we had something that was absolutely miraculous, to have that the nations who are Esav Soinetz Yaakov, Esav hates Yaakov, they hate us all the time. And Pitom, wow, they went ahead and signed a declaration to say that we're allowed to take the land. What juke got into their head, Meshugaim, yeah? What made them think about it? They had charata about it 5 minutes later. they realized they made a mistake afterwards. It was much like the pen was writing itself. The amount that happened, okay, there are some people that will try to explain it historically or whatever, Dwight Eisenhower or whatever it is. But the fact that happened was an absolute miracle, and I don't have to go and speak out. Everyone knows the wars that we went through, and the War of Independence was a bigger miracle than probably... I'm not going to say Kriyas Yamsuf, but it was pretty big. it was a pretty big miracle. The chances of winning such a war was close to nil. Anyways, so having said all that, we can understand there's one very strong side that we're seeing. The birth pangs of Mashiach after the Shoah. Hashem gave us a present that we call Eretz Yisrael, and He put us here, and it's something to appreciate. Yes. However, there's another cut. There's the other side of the rainbow, as we're familiar with. And that is that there are other chugim, and I'm speaking, I'm expanding on what Rav Abba Shaul, but I'm more or less saying the thoughts of Rav Abba Shaul right now. There are other chugim which feel that we are in the biggest galut we've ever been for before. It's the biggest exile we've been for before, because at least in the other exiles, we were in galut by the goyim. At least they were putting us down. They were trying to get rid of us. You have the Yavanim trying to get rid of our thing. You have Haman, and you have all the Germans trying to kill us. We've gone through these galiyot, but at least it was a goy. But here we have Jews, achenu b'sarenu, people from within us, people that are going ahead and doing everything they can to go ahead and rid Jews of Judaism, to try to annihilate everything they can of any type of any means or connection to the Haim, if you don't mind me saying, to the old past. And that was their whole perspective of everything they were doing. And don't play denial. We all know. I'm saying the good facts and the bad facts. Anyone who wants to play denial is playing a game, because these are all documented events about stealing babies and trying to shmad them up. And we know the Teimanim themselves know everything that happened over there.
The preferred galut is available for anyone who wants it.
The preferred...
If that's a preferred galut, they can...
To go out, you mean?
They can leave.
Go out the city. Yeah, go out the city.
Back to the good
Okay, I hear. I have a joke that I want to say, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate. You'll look at the camera, you'll tell me if I can say this. But anyways, there was people having a vikuach when they're going out in shidduchim. So the Ashkenazi boy was saying, everybody wants me, I'm an Ashkenazi. They're always looking to try to, I'm always trying to be chapped or whatever. And the Sephardi said, what do you mean? For us, it's also... by the Sephardim also, so we also have certain reasons why people would prefer us, and we don't ask as much money as you guys crazy people do. You're always asking. They were having a whole vikuach, and the Teimani Teimani don't always have the best of it. They said, you guys are all crazy. We're just born and they were grabbing us and kidnapping us. They were trying to get rid of us. Right when we were born, they were grabbing us. Anyways, it's documented information. I don't have to go through all this. And the fact is a fact. I'm not giving my opinion at all about the whole matter. I'm just mentioning that that's the other side, and they feel that here we are in a place where, Baruch Hashem, we are in Admat HaKodesh, but at the same time, they're Merim Yad Neged Hashem. They stand up courts like the Bagats, who are Jewish people, surprisingly, and they go with complete laws that are anti-Jewish, nothing to do with Judaism. Everything that they do is, like they said, B'Yad Ramah, to go against and try to get rid of anything that has to do with religion, sort of speak. Okay, so this was the suffix. He says like this: where do we ever find this irbuvia of or v'choshech? I'm quoting now from Rav Shol. It bothered him. It like eked him. It upset him. This mixture. Like I understand this. I understand that. Like the whole mixture of black and white. And the mixture of good, which I was going to say good and bad. Is that okay for me to say good and bad, or right and left, or this whole mixture of having such extremes that are happening within our place here on Admat HaKodesh? He said, until I found the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon in Sefer Tetz Yus, it's also brought in Emin Shloimeh, and Perek Yud Aleph, brings down that, and this was written 350 years ago, there's something that's going to be called the Galut Kil, a certain type of harbingings of the Galut, the beginning of the Galut, which is going to be a light Galut, or a mixed Galut, irbuvia of Galut. He says similar to Mitzrayim, also by Mitzrayim, and again we're coming to Pesach, so this isn't very connected. Just like by Mitzrayim we find, we didn't make it out in 2 minutes. It took over a year of bondage, of extra bondage, that we were there for an extra year till all the Makot went through, till the Kriyat Yam Suf and everything that happened during that time period. We have a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah that says also when the Geula will happen, it will take periods of time. Rosh Hashanah will be when it will be declared, and during Shavuos is when we'll get together as one. Will be Leiv Echad, and Pesach will be the time when we'll hear about the Geula, and Sukkot will have a binyan Beit HaMikdash. Sukkot is like the Beit HaMikdash. The Gemara goes through different periods of time. That'll happen. It's not going to happen in chick-chack in 1 second. It's going to be slowly built, like we see in front of us. Baruch Hashem, the buildings that are being built in front of us. So he said, oh, v'nacha nafshi. I felt good about this, because I started realizing, yes, we are in the Galuta, we're in the Geula Akil, meaning we are in the process of the Geula, but it's like the slow, methodical process that happens in a way that will eventually get there. What he calls the Erev HaGeula, the Pekida, the Yom HaPekida, the Erev HaGeula. We're in like Yom Shishi, we're on like Friday, which is right before. Friday is Beinish Moshes, we're getting close to Shabbat. And everything's a big mishmash. Everything is, there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, extreme of this, extreme of that, and everything goes until we finally get to the final day. Ve'amcha kulam tzadikim la'olam yirsha haaretz, until we'll be able to get to that status where everyone will realize Hashem echad u'shmo echad. V'yimaleh Hashem dat Hashem et kol haaretz. When the k'mayim layam echasim, the whole ocean will fill up. What does it mean that the ocean will fill up the world? The ocean will fill up with dat Hashem. Like we see in ocean, we see just absolutely blankets. It blankets the bed of the ocean is blanketed by water. So too, everyone will have a clear and absolute understanding that Hashem echad u'shmo echad b'kedusha v'tara will reach a state. And here we are slowly getting to that stages. And I think we see it mamish lefaneinu. We see that the phenomenon of the extremists almost kind of imploding. They're kind of slowly disappearing. They're dissipating. Because what happens is that when people realize the extremes that they're going to, they start realizing what's sheker is sheker. The sheker is becoming so blatant, so black and white, so clear that it automatically implodes, it automatically disappears, and automatically we'll start realizing Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. So this is the phenomenon that we are going through, something to look at the big picture and appreciate it and know and be happy with the fact that I'm one piece in this beautiful puzzle. You understand? I'm going and being part of this puzzle that is unfolding itself to realizing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Achdus. And yes, it seems confusing and it's hard and it's not so easy. But here I want to tell you an incredible ha'ara, which I'm going to expand on, which I think brings out this idea, and this is something I remember all the time in my head, and I think it's something we should always remember. During the time of the holiday, and this brings out, I'm bringing out now the main thing I want to get at with what we're talking about, Chavlei Mashiach, and this idea of the Ikvitz Mashiach, and what we're getting to. During the Holocaust, as we all know, it wasn't easy. People suffered, and it wasn't so thing. There are many, countless stories, I'll tell you one right now, of people singing when they were walking to the gas chambers, the Ani Mamin. They were going to the gas chambers and they were singing Ani Mamin all the while, and they didn't let loose. One of the more famous stories is a story on the train to Treblinka. The train to Treblinka where nobody came back. Treblinka was just as bad as Auschwitz, just not as popular, because it's popular, but not as much as Auschwitz. Auschwitz was around longer. Treblinka was finished in a year, but 1 year, 1 million people. 1 million people. Think about the number million, it's like not normal amount of people. And but Auschwitz got close to 2 million because it was around longer. Anyways, on the train to Treblinka, they were all sitting on the train and they knew their fate, where they were headed towards. I forgot the name of the person, but it was a famous singer at the time, or like a person who was a manche, a person who made songs, who was sitting on the train, and he was listening to the rattling of the train, right? We're all familiar with that sound, which I even have, even though, I was in the Holocaust, but sometimes when I just see the pictures, I hear the songs, like, I have a picture on my phone that has a picture of train tracks, like going across the street, and my daughter likes to always put different scenes. I say, you don't put that one, I don't let her put that one on my phone. I don't tell her that one, I don't let you put on. You can put on different sceneries. The one with the train tracks going, I don't like, because it has a certain, bad association. And my parents weren't there, yeah. Anyway, so this sound of the choo-choo, 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 that's when he was manche the famous song, and he started singing it when he was sitting over there on the train, and he composed this Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin. It sounds almost like the train. Ani Mamin, Be'emunah She'neimam. It's a famous Ani Mamin. There's different tunes, and that's what he composed. And the whole train, the whole car that was singing it, they were all singing it together. At that time when they were on their way to the thing. When they finished singing or getting the whole song, when they finished it together, he said, I will give a chelik of my olam haba, and he died on Kish Hashem. He ended up getting burnt in Treblinka over there. He said, I will give a chelik of my olam haba to someone who's willing to risk his life and get this to the Rebbe. He wanted him to get to the Baba of a Rebbe. He wanted him to get this song to the Rebbe so that he would know it, so that people could remember, have a remembrance, a memory from what happened at this stage. 2 people jumped out the window. 2 people squeezed themselves out of the window, the skinnier people that were able to squeeze out the window, and they jumped out the window to roll out. 1 person got shot, and as we know, the Germans were standing on top of the cars. 1 person got shot, and since they were focused on that person, the other guy was able to roll down under the tree, and he was able to hide underneath there until nightfall. He ended up being a partisan. This guy who ran away ended up being a partisan for a couple years, until he was able to, escape Poland. He was able to get back to, he was able to leave. And he got back to America. Kitzer, to make a long story short, he went and he taught the Rebbe the song. And he told him the whole story that I'm telling you now. And he told him that they say very soon after that, it was in 1945, it was the first Yom Kippur right after the Shoah. Right after the Shoah, the Rav stood up in front of the shul, in front of everyone. He was ready to give a drasha, and he didn't say one word of a drasha. He didn't give any drasha. He stood up and he started singing Ani Mamin, He just started singing that until the whole shul was together. He didn't get anything. Apparently afterwards he told them the whole entire story about what happened, but that's what happened. This was the theme, if you see all the time in the Holocaust. They always sang the Ani Maamin. And I heard once a Ara from Rav Yaakov Weinberg, B'Shem Rav Yaakov Weinberg, a Talmud from his, that asked a very simple question, something I didn't really think about until I heard it, but I think it's a very strong Ara. He said, why were they busy singing about Mashiach? You would think at a time when they're going and they're about to be burnt al Kiddush Hashem, they're about to be gassed on Kiddush Hashem, that is the time to start talking about the greatness of Olam Haba, Gan Eden, the next world, maybe even Tchiyat HaMeitim. They should speak about something something imminent. They're about to be going to Olam Haba. Why aren't they discussing what's going to be there? Start singing about Olam Haba, the next world, and understanding that we believe that there's an Olam Haba. And I have two worlds, you have one world, and I'm in a much better place than you. What was the focus so much on Mashiach? So listen to his answer, and this is really the theme of everything I was basically coming to get to. He basically says, because these people realized that the Holocaust wasn't something localized to me as an individual. For my personal pain and sorrow and tsar that I am going through, then I would go ahead and sing about my Olam Haba, and I'm going to be okay because I know I'm going to a better place. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take care of me. He's going to put me in the place that I need to be. That would be a focus a little bit more on me and seeing the picture of the Holocaust as a tsar, an anguish of what I am going through. But that wasn't how they felt about this picture. They saw themselves as a piece of a very intricate puzzle. They saw themselves as a stepping stone to a very tall ladder. They saw themselves getting themselves to a place that's much greater than thou, to a place that's beyond my own personal, selfish, if I could say, interests. To go beyond myself and to start realizing and thinking about all of Klal Yisrael as a whole. Here I am, a function that is leading to Ani Maamin Be'emunah Shleima, that Mashiach is on his way. That this is all a very important piece, that Mashiach is coming. I realize that this is all a part of a plan that is coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to get us to a place that's going to reach the world to perfection. I'm going to use a double word. You tell me if it's off to do that, but if you don't mind me saying, they realized that they were the final solution. Not Hitler's final solution, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's final solution. That's my own pun on words. Is that okay to say that? Is that all right? In other words, they knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, this is the finale. You are running the finish line. You are playing the game of what I wanted to build this world to get to a certain place. And yes, I have to put you through a certain tsar, but when you go through such a tsar, you end up coming to a recognition that I'm part of a big machine. I'm part of something greater than myself. I take myself out of the selfish box that we grow up as we are. I take myself out of my own personal interests and forget about my Olam Haba right now. Don't think about my own individual Tchiyat HaMeitim. I'm going to be okay. I know it's not Chas V'Shalom. I never want to place any of us, including myself. I wouldn't be able to handle the Nissan myself. So Chas V'Shalom, even to say such a thing. But I'm just saying, to take myself out of the box of focusing on my own personal Olam Haba and start focusing on the big box of Klal Yisrael, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the Tzar de Shechina, about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going through, and the fact that we are there to be able to be Kebiyachol, a savior to Klal Yisrael. And that is really why they were always singing the Yesod of Ani Maamin. They were putting a lot more meaning than their just individual selves. I think it's a very true answer. It's Rav Noach Weinberg's brother. Rav Yaakov Weinberg was the Rosh Hashiva in Baltimore, who said that idea. And I'm going to take a story also, which overlaps from this, by a certain person which I think we might be familiar with. Quoting him sometimes bothers me because this person, Lamaisa, was he was a friar Yid. He was not a religious Yid. But Lamaisa, he was spot on with his psychology, and his name was Viktor Frankl. We are familiar with him, right? The Search for Meaning, right? He was very popular, and he's very utilized in Jewish literature. It irritates me a little bit because if you read a little bit, he was married to a Jew. When he went into the Holocaust, he got killed, and he remarried. He ended up marrying a non-Jew. So it bothers me a little bit that after everything he went through, but his hashkafa was in the right place. He just, as I said, channeled it wrong, but in the right place. But it's known that his yesod, and this is what he did in the camps as he pens himself in his book, was much to give people an idea of meaning of something more than yourself, which is really the yesod that we're talking about right now. He used to go around in the camps and say and ask them, so how is what you're going through right now? Imagine hearing this in Auschwitz, right? How is what you're going through right now going to affect you after the war? How will it affect you with your family and your parnassa? And when you start doing that, are you serious? Like they want to spin his face. You're telling me these people could be gassed or drop dead in 5 minutes from lack of food and drink, and you're talking to me, how is all this going to affect my future when I, become free and B'ezrat Hashem I have children, or I have another job, or wherever I decide to live, and all that stuff. It was very almost irritating to hear such things, and he would go around kind of appealing to people these questions. And the answer is because, as he claims, and is correct, like I said with this idea, is that sometimes you have to take a trauma, and instead of focusing on the past, and you have to know how to do it, or else you can ruin the person. But using it to be menif, to be able to be as a catalyst for the future. You have to take a trauma and being able to use it as a stepping stone to how I can do that to improve myself, to improve other people, to see how this can improve the whole entire scenario. To remove yourself, real geula is geula atzmi. I have to redeem myself. I take myself out of a place of bondage and redeem myself from those traumas that I myself personally went through. Not by harping on them and carping on them and complaining about them and crying over them on a constant basis. You have your excuses, you're allowed to do it, I'm not saying not to. But that's not the ideal where you're headed. The ideal nakuda of where it's headed is to a place where I can make it greater than thou, to make myself bigger than myself. Like these people that they're saying ani mamin, they realize that I'm part of a building block of getting to Mashiach, to getting something that's beyond my own personal interests and my own personal tsar and anguish. Like I said, we should never know such anguish. But that's something that we learn from the Holocaust, and something that we're able to learn from what the meaning is of Chevlei Mashiach. When we talk about Chevlei Mashiach and the pains that we go through by Mashiach, it's to get ourselves, if I could say, out of our selfish selves and start setting our priorities straight. When a person is going through a difficult time, suddenly priorities start coming into perspective. He stops thinking about money all the time. Do I have to really have those extra hours in the office? He starts setting perspectives. Am I really running my life the way it is? When Lo Aleinu gets a diagnosis from the doctor, he reassesses his whole life, his whole situation. Am I doing things correctly? Is it really correct? My midah, to the way I act in the house, the way I act with my friends. The guy's thinking, wow, I might not be here tomorrow because the doctor just told me I have, X, I shouldn't say that. The doctor just said a diagnosis where the person might have X amount of days. You understand? So if such a person is living in such a scenario, he's not going to start getting frustrated at anyone. His irritations are going to be on low. He's going to try to be as friendly as possible. He's going to realize that maybe I should be going to the Beit Midrash and spending his last days doing something a little bit more fundamental than what I'm wasting my life about. You understand? When a person goes through the Chevlei Mashiach, when he goes through the difficult times, he starts thinking broader. He starts thinking in the Ani Mamin. He starts thinking of Tachlit HaChaim. He starts thinking of purpose. He starts getting out of his own individual selfish box, and he thinks about, if I could say, even the Tzara Shechina. He goes even beyond his own self. And that's why we've seen Herculean abilities during the time of the Holocaust, which there is no bigger Chevlei Mashiach, and Chashem there should ever be any other Chevlei Mashiach more than that one. That was probably the biggest of the biggest. That was like the Leda, the birth, before we came into Israel. But you saw the incredible things that they were able to do, and that's where it comes from. That's that power to be able to do it. With this, I want to quote you another, or let's see, I'm going to quote you another Rav Amishol, which is a Vart on a Midrash and Tanchuma, which is an unusual Midrash, and he says it, and I probably wouldn't have quoted it, but it fits so perfect to what I'm saying now, you'll be able to relate to what he's saying over here. Okay, basically it says like this, again, we're going into Pesach, and we know on the 7th day of Pesach, we sing Az Yasher Moshe, Uvnei Yisrael Teshira Azot LaHashem. We sing together the praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Az Yasher. The Tanchuma says something very unusual, the Midrash. Yud Aleph. LeHashem Amrua v'loy lebasar v'dam. When we sang Az Yasher, we sang it to Hashem, and we didn't sing it to basar v'dam, to a person. Can you figure that out? Can you tell me push-up shot what that means? They sang the Az Yashar to Hashem and not to a person. Duh. I mean, if there's one thing I wouldn't be praising anybody about, it's the Kriyas Yamsuf. That was a clear miracle. I'm obviously singing the praises to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not to Basar V'Dam. So he quotes the Rosh Hashiva, Rav Avashal Rav Atiyah. He quotes Rav Atiyah, which said, push-up shot. Mamish, go in a stick an answer, but it's so simple when you hear it. It's so obvious. And I'll start with a mashal. Because if I just say the answer, you won't appreciate it. I'm going to say, not a mashal, but a real story. From right now, our day and age. Lo aleinu v'lo alechem, it shouldn't happen to us. But, they do this, these villains, these ruthless satanic people, like to play psychological warfare, as we're all familiar. And as they are choked more and more, they try to make us suffer as much as we can, at least psychologically. And recently, and they've done it a number of times, they let out another video of someone who is who's being held hostage for the past year and a half or so. And I didn't see the whole tiyud. I don't have so much access to all these things, but more or less, he was pleading with his brother who was released and pleading with his parents to say, you know how much I'm suffering here. Please let me out. The man was as skinny as a toothpick. He looks horrible. Tears in his eyes. He's begging his parents and his brother to please do anything you can to get me out of here. He's sitting in a dark tunnel, wretched, probably barely having any oxygen to go, surrounded by a bunch of meshugayim with machine guns that can pull a trigger any second. Chayav einam chayim, he has no life, and it's a very difficult and treacherous life. You see that video, and I'm not sure who to feel worse for, him or his father or his mother. Who do you feel worse for when you see such a video like that? Maybe his brother who was there next to him and now not there anymore. I'm not sure where's more painful. I mean, he's not very comfortable. I understand he's going through it. But his father is like standing on his head and going upside down and going meshuggah. It's one thing if you know that he's not and you don't know. But he sees he's alive. He sees he's there. And it's just like, just please. Like it's extremely painful type of experience. It's more painful than if you already knew he's dead. At least you know, okay, game's over. At least you know something's there. At least there's some closure to see such a thing. And these jerks know exactly what they're doing, and that's why they do it, because they want to put people in as much tsar and agmas nefesh as they can, because that's their mitzvah that they hold as a big mitzvah to do such stupidity. Anyways, so that's what they do. What do we see from here? That when a person is seeing their child going through such a thing, the agmat nefesh, and like I said, they're still alive, you know you're alive, and you just do it, just get out, just do anything. So yes, like I said, it's a shikul. Am I saying they should sacrifice everything to let him out? That's not for now, right? And that's why we're in a very big pickle, obviously, as we understand. But the agmat nefesh, the pain to put a father or a parent to go through all of that, and goes through that is, if you don't mind me saying so, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going through. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going through. He sees us in a Hamas tunnel. He sees us in the galut. He sees the priorities are all upside down right now. He sees that he's losing his children by the minute. How much intermarriage is going on, and how many people are going off. How many young teenagers are just not making it, and how many people are suffering from what they're suffering from. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not happy with it. He's suffering from such a scenario. No less than that father watching his son in Gaza. No less, and if I could say even more. Seder? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we all know, is saying, just do it. I know what you're supposed to do. Just do it. Just get to the other side. Just finish. I want to get the Gula. The Mashiach is here. He's waiting. I just need you guys to do what you need to do in order to get there. And he's waiting just like anybody else. And therefore, I'm pointing out that real understanding of Chevlei Mashiach, like I said, gets you out of the box. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shleima, getting to Mashiach, realizing we're part of a big picture, appreciating that we're all getting there, and I'm a clog in a big picture that's getting us to a better place in the world. but realizing also HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is suffering from such a thing because he also wants to be there. It's very hard for him to see us in a place that he doesn't want us to be. And that's Pashup Pshat in his Midrash. What is that? Az Yasher Moshe Uvnei Yisrael et Yisrael Zot Le Hashem. What does it mean, Le Hashem? Le Hashem Amrua. They said it for you. We care about you. We sing for you, Hashem. We sing the praises. We're so happy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we were able to be nigel. They were beyond the Lo Basar Dam. They weren't talking about themselves. They weren't singing, we're so happy, I'm free, yay, no more Mitzrayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm happy for you, not for me. Do you hear such levels? I'm not saying we're going to be on such levels, but I'm just saying what we're supposed to get to at least. That's what the idea of Chayil Mashiach is, to get out of our minds, to get out of our own selfish box. It's not only about when I can get better, and Bezrat Hashem, my parnas will be better, or things will be better for me, or things will be quiet, or there won't be any more tsar in the world. It's a little bit more better than that. It's beyond that. It's that we'll be in a world of perfection. Everyone will realize Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, will realize the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the perfection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the world will be clear. It will be rain. It will have perfect vision, and we won't have this obstacle in front of us that we call Chevlei Mashiach. You understand? We'll already have the Mashiach by us, and that's really the idea here. The turbulence that we go through before Mashiach comes is to get us to think bigger, bright. It's like to think a little bit out of the box, a little bit bigger about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, about Klal Yisrael, about how I'm helping eventually to get to a certain place. I'm so happy that I could be a piece in this puzzle, to be a little bit more out of myself, and that's really the derech HaTshuva. People always say, okay, if we do tshuva, Mashiach will come. But you see, the derech HaTshuva is what? To stop being focused only on me, myself, and I. To start being focused on what I could do for someone else. To get out of the box and be a little bit more focused on the outside. Ideally speaking, if we're at higher levels, to speak about what can I do for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What can I do to make my HaKadosh Baruch Hu happy? Or the fact that, I'm doing something good makes him happy. Like that type of focus is the ideal to be able to get there. If you follow what I'm saying, if people just say, make Hashem happy, it's a little bit too out of the box for me. On purpose, I'm trying to make it that we feel what I'm talking about. That the focus goes to something bigger than thou, outside of myself, to go out to help Klal Yisrael, help the world, to be able to get to its matara. Hashem built this world in order to get to a certain place. It's been 5,700 years already. It's been a long time. He's waiting for it to get there. Please, Hashem, let's get there. What do I have to do? Tell me the next step. And the answer is that you have to go ahead and pull yourself out of your own individual box. And I'll finish with this, and this is I'll end. Even though this could take a long time, I'm going to do it in a quick nutshell. And that is why the last galut from all the galiyot we know, there are 4 galiyot, known as the 4 chayot. There's 4 animals which Daniel saw in his dream, and those are connected the 4 exiles which we had to go through, as we know, with Persia and Rome and Bavel. But there's one final one which is not mentioned in Daniel, but the Maharal and everybody mentions it, and that is Galut Yishmael. Galut Yishmael. Why isn't it mentioned? It says the Maharal, because Yishmael had a little bit more than the other 4. The other 4 compared to Chayot, they're compared to animals, and as opposed to Yishmael actually gets the name Adam. He's a para Adam. Now, he would say if anyone's an animal, it's those Yishmaelim. Those guys are the real animals. You're wondering, why is that? So the answer is, says the Maharal, because everybody else countered the Kadosh Baruch Hu. All the other Galiyot were keneged Hashem. They were erasing Hashem's existence, trying to. You understand? As opposed to Yishmael, he goes with it. He totally believes in one Hashem. He's the first Galut that we went through that believes in a one God. He's the monotheism, believes in the same God, that we believe in. They warped to the religion, Seder. But he still is still there. And that's why he has the name Kel in his name, Yishma Kel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens to the name. And that's what it says, the Rav Chaim Vital brings in Eretz Chaim, Lechen galutot kifo mishar malchiot. Therefore his galut is going to be harder than all the other ones. Ki lechen nikra shmo Yishmael. Al Shem Shatidim Yisrael litzok tzakot gdolot b'mei galutan ve'az yishma kel v'yanem, because we're going to scream big screams, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to be listened to us as a result of our screams. But because of their connection, kebiyochol, that causes problems. So we sit here and we wonder, you can't be serious. You're going to call these people people? Is that really what it's about? So the answer is like this, and with this like I said, we're coming to a close here. They took a midah of Hashem, and this is exactly what I was speaking about before. You'll see. They took the midah of believing in Hashem and warped it. It's all about myself. Meaning, I take religion as an excuse. The religion is tafel, it's not ikar. It's secondary, it's not the main part of it. The religion is there to make me find meaning in the decisions that I myself want to do. I myself want to kill someone. I myself want to rape women. I shouldn't say I. The person wants to go ahead and rape women. The person wants to go ahead and do horrific things that they steal, like from Gainesville. They steal from here till tomorrow, and it's all for religious reasons. Everything they steal, they're mamish ganavim she'en kamo. And they could be worth sale. They killed their own people. Here they are. A few people made protests over here in Gaza. They're knocking them all off. You sure it's all quiet on the Westward Front right now? There's no protests over there in Gaza right now. Beautiful. Oh wow, hush hush. I guess they agree with Hamas right now. They're knocking them off. They knocked already 6 of them. They got killed and hanged publicly in front of everybody. Okay, no more protests. Anyways, so that they completely take, as they say, the law in their own hands, but all in the name of religion. Meaning the difference between us and them is by them, religion is there as an excuse to do what I want. By us, we take religion to humble our own needs in order to be what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants. You follow? That's the whole difference of everything. Both proclaim religion, but not that I do whatever I want. We do it, and not because I want to do whatever I want. We do it because if a Kadosh Baruch Hu tells me to do this, then I will humble my desires, which is what I told you before. When the real way to bring Mashiach, the ikvus of Mashiach, is think out of the box. Go out of your comfort zone. Not everything I want, I should deserve to get. Sometimes I should be focused a little bit more on someone yena, on someone outside of myself. Be a little bit more comforting to my spouse instead, even if it comes at my own personal expense. Or be helping out someone else, even though it's not so comfortable. I have to get up and help them, or take out stucco, or whatever it is, or doing what's needed in order to help someone else. You have to go out of your box, and then that's really the idea of the exact counter opposite of this galut that we're referring to, is Gal Yishmael, which we said is Chevlei Mashiach. You follow? I was saying, Chevlei Mashiach is going through turbulence, hard times, in order for us to start getting our priorities straight, to think straight, and to stop thinking selfish. To start thinking of people outside of me. To start getting things, even if I have to leave my comfort zone to do what's right, I do what's right. And that is exactly what this galut that we refer to as Yishmael is, which is completely the galut of an idea of taking a Kadosh Baruch Hu at my whim. I one time was driving Rabbi Kellerman, Rav Leib Kellerman. Familiar with him? This goes back almost 2 decades ago. It was a while ago. He gave some shiurim over here in Chinuch over here in Beit Shemesh, and I drove him a couple times back. And one time, this was during, you know when it was? During the time of the, I drove him mamish the week, I think, after the Subaru explosion over there, which was the Subaru, which was one of the worst of all of them. And you know, they were describing this person who did it as, he really, whatever, they were describing the Arab who did it, Yimach Shemo. Anyways, so I was asking him in the car, I was like, what's with these guys? Like, if this is really what's in the Quran, and this is what they're being told what to do, and this is what it is, so what's going to be in the Olam Haba? Like, what's going to be the next section? I was kind of a fresh chassan almost. I was still pretty fresh off the press. And I was asking what's going to be with it, he kind of was doing it, quote unquote, chas shalom to say l'shem shamayim, but he was doing it because he felt that was the right thing to do and everything like that. And he told me, why did I ask him, by the way? I asked him because he's a man who went to every single religion, yeah? He bounced around a lot. He went to Christianity, to Islam, Buddhism, he knows every religion bal peh. Okay, that's his amamano. You can read his books. I mean, he's a bucky in every religion. He said everything they're saying is absolute hogwash. It's nowhere in the Quran that has to do with saying like that. And I know afterwards I looked into it also what they're doing is completely off the books. It's not written there at all. And it's not even brainwash. If they really wanted to, they would look a little bit into it and figure it out. Why are we so, as Jews, right? We don't just take everything, we also learn, we ask questions. The whole idea is to ask questions, to figure it out, to see what the thing is, how does it get to the conclusions and why and how. There's always a question and type of thing. If a person really cared to know the emet, they would have figured it out. They would have figured out the emet is not with them at all. They would have known that what they're doing, especially to do such an out-of-the-box thing, something so exorbitant. It comes from a place of their own interest to be able to do that. It makes them feel better. Of course, they're promised their 70 ptulot, they get their 70 virgins, of course. It's all about my personal taifas. It's all about my personal desires. When a person goes ahead and he can kill himself because he knows what's in store for him, it's what I spoke out before. It's all about me. I said in the Holocaust, they didn't talk about their Olam Haba. They spoke about the big picture of Mashiach. The Yishmaelim are busy with me. They're busy with what I can get out of this. It's how much they're just thinking about, again, this picture of stupidity that they have of what they're going to get up above, and that's what happens. The Kotzker said a beautiful line. He also says it's nishkin kunz. It's not a kunz. It's not a big deal to die on your Kiddush Hashem. To go ahead and die on Kiddush Hashem, that's not the kunz. That's a 1-second event that happens in zeh zeh. It's a big thing, but it's not the biggest thing. What's a kunz, he said, is to live on Kiddush Hashem. Day to day, Yetzahara to Yetzahara, stumbling block to stumbling block, event by event, to be able to go ahead and do that, that's a thing. And that's the idea, the difference between us and them, that we go ahead and we live by Kiddush Hashem. We don't believe in dying on Kiddush Hashem. They just warped their priorities. And that's why the famous Chofetz Chaim says, and with this I'm basically finished, that's why they're called Pere Adam. Adam. Ideally speaking, in Hebrew, you always are supposed to speak out the noun and then afterwards the adjective. You say Adam Chacham. You say Yeled Zariz. You say the boy who is quick. First is the noun and then the adjective. Or you go Adam Chacham. You speak about the person and then he's wise. You speak about Doag Adomi. Doag is his name, and then Adomi, what he was from Edom. You understand that type of idea? You're supposed to go ahead and speak it out. And here, so really the real syntax should be Adam Pere. He was a person who was a Pere. He's a person who's a wild, can I say what it is? Right? A Pere means wild with no inhibitions, right? No inhibitions. It really means a donkey for the other word for a donkey, if you understand. Right? But anyway, so that's what he's a wild thing. So why is it written Pere Adam? He says no, because Pere is the noun. He is a Pere. He is the noun. What he is the Pere. He's in the formation of an Adam. He has the formation, the klastar, the appearance of an Adam. That's the adjective. The Adam, the human shaboy, is the adjective. The essence, the formation of what he really is, the noun, that's the Pere. That's the part of being wild, not having any regulations, not being limited, not being told what to do, not having anybody who putting any type of limitations. And that's why, in the words of the Chafetz Chaim, he says you could put a suit on him, and the Anshe Tarbut, and the people who are very into ethics. What's a good word for Tarbut? Culture. For culture. The culture people will come, and they'll come and give him, cultural lessons. They'll take him to university. And I'm quoting you words from the Chafetz Chaim in 1910s, before any major things. And he said they could teach him to be a lawyer or a doctor, but he'll still be a Pere Adam. The Pere will not stop. You can't take him out of what he is, because that still is the Metzias. And he said, Oy mi etzileinu misumukel. He says, he himself wrote, the Chafetz Chaim, he wrote these words. He says, Oy, what's going to be b'soif yamim? What's going to be in the end of days when they're going to be taken about? I'm trying to read. He sighed and he said like this: Oy mi yodea ma pera damazeh od alu lasot im Yisrael la'am Yisrael ba'acharite yamim. What he's going to do acharite yamim. This is a prediction from 120 years ago. Pretty impressive. Come on. And he says that I'm worried about what these people are going to end up doing to us in the time when we're at our end. So we see this idea, the conclusion, that yes, Chevle Mashiach, it's not comfortable. It's leading us to a certain place where it's supposed to take us out of our box, out of ourselves, into thinking about other people, thinking about Mashiach, or thinking about where we're aiming to get to a bigger picture, trying to fulfill the desires that we're supposed to be doing, trying to make the changes in ourselves that will help other people, even if it makes us uncomfortable, and that will conquer really what Yishmael stands for, which is basically about the Pere much more than the Adam. Say it? Okay.
Ah asa Mashiach